What is up, Watch fam? Happy Monday and welcome to Rant&h. I'm Christian from Theo and Harris, and today we're going to be jumping into one of my least favorite recent Tudor releases. All right, but before we do a quick wristwatch check, I am wearing an absolutely stunning 37mm chronograph, vintage chronograph, of course. For those of you who aren't familiar with vintage chronographs, this is a very large vintage chronograph, something that you don't usually find. So many people in the modern world go to chronographs because they're larger. They're 37, 38, 39, 40mm, even 42, and larger, of course. But in the vintage world, that reflection in size isn't really there. Most vintage chronographs are still in that 35mm range, which, although I think is beautiful, many people think is a little bit dainty. So when I was able to stumble across this watch, I was obviously blown away. I was very, very shocked to be lucky enough. You see them out there sometimes, but usually they're astronomical numbers, talking about gilt dials with price tags that are like $3-4 grand. So when I found this, I was obviously, like I said, very lucky. Anyway. Today we're going to be talking about the Tudor Black Bay Chronograph. This is a watch that was released a while back, but I've seen some recent hands-on attention with the watch. Some blogs, Hodinkee most recently, a blog to watch not too long ago, and a couple other small ones have been showing the watch off and kind of rehashing the new release. So I wanted to really make a video dedicated to my thoughts on this watch and how, unfortunately, they are not very positive. So we'll do some technical specifications and then I'll give you my opinion. Okay, so this is actually not the first modern chronograph issued by Tudor. A couple of years ago, Tudor released their Heritage Chronograph, which is basically just a modern Monte Carlo. I thought it was wonderfully executed. I would recommend that watch in a heartbeat. I actually did recommend that watch on YouTube in a video, so I have no hesitation. I'm not a Tudor hater. I think I just like to analyze watches for what they are, and then take the brand out of it sometimes. And although I do like the Black Bay, I do like their chronographs, this watch to me is a big miss. Okay, so what about it is a big miss? To me, fundamentally, I have a hard time reconciling their decision to put this in the Black Bay line. Taking a step back, this is not the first time modern Tudor has made this decision. With their Black Bay 36, I have a hard time seeing how that is a dive watch. To me, just because a watch is waterproof does not make it a dive watch. To me, the Black Bay 36 was actually much more kind of close to a Datejust competitor than it was to a Submariner competitor, which is exactly what the Tudor Snowflake and the Black Bay is supposed to be. A reinvented, kind of funkier, very beautiful and well-made Submariner alternative. My point here is the Black Bay 36 and this Black Bay chronograph, just because they have these snowflake hands, which are so iconic and so recognizable with the original, snowflakes, that does not make these watches Black Bays. And I just don't understand why Tudor is forcing, these watches, both of them, into this box. They don't fit. And that's a problem on like kind of like a analytical kind of perspective. Jumping into the watch itself, there are quite a few problems. The first problem that jumps out to me immediately, which although is kind of like minute, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it, is the inconsistency in finishing. Particularly if you look at the crown beside the pushers, the beveling, the finishing, the coin edge cutting, right? The way that the crown and the pushers are finished is very different. It seems like the pushers are from a different watch, and I have a very hard time understanding why that is. If you look at the Heritage Chronograph from a couple of years ago, it's not the case. They use this textural kind of gradient, finish throughout. It made perfect sense. So where did Tudor lose that understanding of consistency? To me, huge deal breaker. It's not a $20 watch. It's a $5,000 watch on its bracelet. So to me, that inconsistency is just like unacceptable. Moving beyond that, the sheer size at nearing 15 millimeters, 14.99 millimeters, astronomical. I mean, that's a house on your wrist. That is an obtrusive piece of almost like bordering man jewelry at this point. To me, that does not scream sports watch. That does not scream tool watch. Once again, I talked about this with the Rolex Explorer a while ago. A tool watch is supposed to be a tool. It's supposed to help you, not hold you back. That's the whole point. In a very simple, conceptual kind of understanding. This is not difficult. So when I see a tool that is built in a clunky fashion, a tool that is too heavy or too big, I don't understand why. You had one job, in the case of a watch, you had a couple of jobs, but it wasn't that hard. And I hate to say that because I don't want to trivialize their work, but to me, size, sheer mass should not be so obtrusive. And I'm not even talking about diameter. I'm not even talking, I have small wrists, so I have a big problem with this. It's 42 and that's too big. I'm just talking about how ridiculous this is. It's not a datograph, ladies and gentlemen. The movement is a Tudor modified Breitling BO1 movement. Which plenty of people, and I'm not going to get into that because I'm not schooled well enough in this movement, but plenty of people are just saying, okay, this is just pomp and circumstance. It's really very little, if not almost no different than the prior iterations. Okay, so if you can move beyond the inconsistent finishing, which I think is unacceptable, and you can move beyond what is, in my opinion, totally obtrusive thickness of the case itself, you're still dealing with an aesthetic that to me is fine. I think there are much better competitors out there, to be honest. I think that Tudor themselves make plenty alternative competitors to this watch. I think the North Flag is a better looking watch. It has a kind of an oyster quartz feel with a power reserve. I think it's a very cool alternative to an Explorer. I think that like I said before, the Tudor Heritage Chronograph, wonderful looking watch. I've seen it on the wrist of so many people. Not only do I think they executed it much better, but I think that it's designed just on a even larger scale. It's just prettier and funkier, and it does exactly what in my opinion, $3,000 watch should. It works real well. It's built real solid, and it's a lot of fun to wear. And everyone that I know that's had that watch and worn that watch has a blast. Look at it. Can't you kind of tell? But this watch, particularly at $5,000, which to me is just ridiculous and astronomical, it just does not live up. And no, I have not handled it, just to answer those questions. I have not seen this watch in the flesh yet. So, as with all of my opinions and all of my episodes and everything at Theo and Harris, this is opinion. And opinions are always subject to being challenged or to change. So, but I do promise, if I saw this watch tomorrow and my opinion was different, radically or even marginally from what I'm going on record and saying today, I promise to correct that. Okay, but I think that when you look at these things, I don't need to look and hold the Tudor Black Bay Chronograph and to know that conceptually it's ridiculous that they have inconsistent finishing. I don't need to hold it. I don't need to hold this particular watch to know that 15 millimeters is far too thick. I've held watches, at that thickness or thinner that I thought were ridiculous and obtrusive. So these are things that, me holding it would have no actual impact on my opinion here. Is it a bad watch? No. It's a Tudor with some sort of correlation to Breitling with a dive pass, but probably also the most sellable complication out there. This to me is a watch that will be a commercial success because of all the people out there that aren't going to look into it like I am. Because of all the people out there that are going to see a $5,000 chronograph, which is a lot more affordable than a Daytona, and say, oh, that's kind of cool looking. Yeah, I could buy that. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm into it. They're going to buy the sales pitch. They're going to buy the fluff words like Breitling and dive history and heritage and snowflake, and they're going to go for it. But if you take a second, you step back and you look at it, the watch is subpar. Not only is it subpar, the same company makes way better alternatives. So sorry, Tudor, I think you missed the mark. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Rant&h. Do not forget to check out the watches in the watch shop at theoandharris.com. Tomorrow we're listing 2 Rolexes at a crazy Tudor with alpha hands and much more. And this chronograph. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Adios.